Hello and welcome to another In Conversation With. In this video we are in conversation with a luthier and all-round good guy, Alex Bishop, who's based here in England in Bristol. This conversation is wide-ranging. In fact, it's so wide-ranging there are actually two parts to it. So this is part one. In part one we're going to dive into Alex's early inspiration, engineers versus artists. You're going to find his top 3 tips for choosing a luthier for a custom-built guitar. We're also going to talk wood and guitar design, back and sides, and why they're important. So without further ado, let's dive into this conversation with Alex Bishop. Hi Alex, thank you very much for your time here. I do appreciate it. We're going to dive straight into some questions here. So, can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your journey into luthiery?
Yeah, so I quit an aerospace engineering degree, which I started the second year, and I was one of those people that was frustrated by the fact I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, basically. So I ended up leafing through prospectuses for universities. I thought I'd quite fancy going to London, where my brothers were based. And I got the London Metropolitan University prospectus, and it just opened. I opened it at the page for musical instrument making, and just a light bulb moment.
Oh, seriously?
Instantly, that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm going to do. And I haven't really looked back, for better or worse.
Wow, that's awesome. So just because I didn't know that about you, how much does the aerospace design concepts, all of that feed into your guitars and your guitar making?
I think it says something about fundamentally the kind of person I am, because I studied in my A-levels art and maths and physics and history. So this idea that we're either kind of quite technical, scientific people or quite artistic has never really worked with me. I definitely sit in both camps, but I've always kind of struggled to find something that brought it all together. So engineering seemed like the right kind of thing to do, but then I just lacked that creative output. So I was playing music and all this kind of thing on the side. So I think the engineering helps, but it's part of who I am, really. I like the technical aspect. I'm not just a kind of full flow, organic, creative person with no plan. You know, it's quite calculated in my approach. So I love guitar making for being this thing that, you know, it's necessary to be precise and technical about it, but then you've got a blank canvas there to sort of also inject a bit of creativity. So I guess it doesn't really feed into guitar making directly, but that desire to really drill down into how things work
and how mind.
I think the approach to building a guitar in a very scientific way is really interesting, and there are makers out there with that approach where they look at the numbers and they measure the sort of sonic output of the guitar and they try and draw kind of scientific correlations between...
That's one of the questions I was going to bring up later.
Right.
I've seen so many videos of people hooking up wires to the guitars and strumming them and seeing the output and then shaving off here a little bit there. So interesting.
Yeah, I think it's totally valid. But this is what I love about guitar making, is like there's more than one way to approach it, you know.
What kind of guitars do you specialise in? If you do you specialise at all?
I do kind of come from the world of gypsy jazz music. So I love the music of Django Reinhardt, and I was totally drawn towards those unique looking guitars.
Yeah, the McFerry.
Yeah, totally. The small oval sound holes, the D holes are just really intriguing. But the sound of those guitars, if you try and play that sort of music on anything else, it just doesn't quite have the same crunchy sound, especially on the rhythm side of things. So I was just totally curious about that, and I ended up really getting into that world when I started learning. So I suppose that's my speciality, but since then I've been building a lot of steel string folk guitars and some crossover nylon strung jazz guitars, I suppose, and folk guitars. So definitely not kind of classical traditional guitars, but I've had students of mine building traditional style classical guitars as well. So I've had a bit of a taste of everything.
Because you actually do teach as well, don't you? You have a course, don't you? Sorry.
Yes,
You have a course.
I do. I do several kind of different courses. Some in to suit everybody. So I set up the Bristol Guitar Making School. I set it up in 2019, and but I've been teaching for years before that. But I decided to set something up that's a bit more substantial and offers different courses for people coming from all different angles. Evening classes for kind of working professionals, but I also do a 3-week intensive course, which is pretty full on. That's a group setting. Everyone builds a guitar from start to finish in 3 weeks from a pile of wood. So that's a kind of fun way at it. And then I do one-to-one stuff. So I've had other luthiers coming here to learn kind of specialist techniques. And share my own take on things like arm bevels and binding and side sound ports. So yeah, I do quite a lot of teaching. About half my time is probably teaching, and the other half is making and repairing.
From a classical point of view, most of us aspire to a custom build guitar. So what is your sort of hints, tips? What is it that you would do for a classical?
My top tip, if I was getting a guitar made by a luthier, I think the first thing is choose the maker quite carefully. So choose somebody whose work, obviously, that you like the look of, but also meet them and talk to them. I think as soon as you have that conversation with a maker, you get to know whether you click. And then once you've established that I like this maker and I like what they do, I think the next most important thing is to at least have a little bit of room to allow that maker to kind of inject their own things. Because I think the best guitars I've ever made were the ones where I've gone on a bit of a flight of fancy and I think I've got an idea that I really want to try out. And just leaving a bit of room for the luthier to have some ideas is going to kind of really elevate the project, I think, because trusting in their judgment is great. But equally, if you can come to it with a few ideas about what you want, even if it's bare bones, sketches of the sort of design of the instrument and an idea of the woods, and then you've got something to kind of collaborate on together. So getting the design right and getting the materials right is probably the key thing. The back and sides wood on a guitar, be it classical or steel strung, it's like the spice in the sound, I think. So you will hear the influence of those back and sides. And most tops will tend to be a softwood, spruce,
or cedar.
So you haven't got loads of scope on the top, so the back and sides is kind of where you get to be a bit more creative.
So what are you choosing for your back and sides, generally?
My sort of philosophy and my guitars is all about getting those back and sides to have their effect on the sound. So I can be quite experimental with the kind of woods that I use, and I like using a lot of different woods and things that I haven't used before so that I can kind of get that effect and that sound to come to the front. So I don't stick to one kind of thing, and I like that unique characteristic of that wood to come through, so I'm really building one-off instruments. But top of the list for me for steel strings is probably Walnut. I think it's been underrated for a long time, and it's grown on our doorsteps here in the UK. So it's sustainably sourced for the most part. It's not travelling air miles to get to the workshop. So I love stuff that's indigenous. It's a bit like the way that cypress is used on flamenco guitars. It's because it's grown on the doorsteps of the Spanish luthiers' workshops. So I like wood with a story. I'm not going to be pinned down to saying one particular wood is going to be the best.
No. Okay, but it's great because it is, like you said, it's sustainable, but also it's British made, and it's got that stamp of being made here, in this island, which is, I think it's really important.
Definitely. I really like firing the imagination of the person that's going to play the guitar, because if they know that there's a story in what they're about to play, be it that the wood's all from reclaimed sources, or it's from a tree that Queen Victoria planted, or bog oak is becoming quite a popular thing to use. So I built a nylon strung guitar out of that. That's 5,000-year-old wood that's been basically it's been left in the kind of, a lot of it comes from Norfolk, and it's basically in the early stages of fossilization. It's kind of black throughout, and I just love that idea that this tree was growing when Stonehenge was being assembled. So to use wood like that, I mean, instantly I think, wow, I want to play that guitar. And I think evoking that imagination is really important in inspiring players.
How much of an effect, because you said it spices up, how much of an effect does a 5,000-year-old piece of wood do or have on the sound? Because especially if it's fossilized or in the process of being fossilized.
Yeah, it's surprising actually that I was expecting, compared to oak, normally it was going to be really hard and really dense.
Yeah,
and difficult.
I've got to be honest. I was sat here thinking that does it actually sort of vibrate?
Yeah, it's surprising. I think compared to normal oak, it wasn't actually very different.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to be a challenge to bend and things like that. And sonically, I think it really worked. That was for a guitar with a lattice top as well, which was a first for me. So it was harder for me to separate the effect of the back and sides from the top.
This is one for you, right up your alley. So, what advice would you give to aspiring guitarists or anyone who is curious about learning to build their own instrument?
Well, I'd say give it a go, one way or another. The idea with my teaching is that no experience is necessary. So I'm very much here about welcoming students who don't know anything about building guitars. They don't even need to know about playing guitars. So you can kind of come in totally cold and learn something, even just coming in to do a setup masterclass. That is a great place to start. Just tinker with the guitar that you've got. And I mean, have a plan B. I can be the plan B. It's like Ghostbusters. Who you can call? Call Alex Bishop.
Alex Bishop. There you go.
Get in a pickle.
There's a jingle there.
I think that's what got me into making, is just tinkering with my guitar. I mean, I bought an Epiphone Les Paul.
Is that your first?
Probably my first electric.
Yeah.
And I think day 2 I took it apart.
No way.
I just took everything apart.
No, seriously?
Yeah, I'm that kind of way inclined. So I don't know why. And I just ran with it. And it doesn't have to, especially in this age of YouTube, there's a lot of information out there. And there's people willing to help as well. So I would say tinker on your guitar. And then the next step after sort of learning a bit of setup work is probably pulling out frets and putting frets in, maybe leveling fingerboards. So there's loads of guitars out there in charity shops and people trying to sell stuff cheap because it doesn't work anymore. So start a project, and take it apart.
I'm a big believer in I've got a confession. I'm a big believer in eBay. So what I do is I tend to go on eBay for a couple of weeks and just stroll through all the second-hand guitars that go on. And when we landed here, I needed a guitar because I wouldn't have guitars for months. And I found a British-made Freshman guitar for like 160 quid, but it's all handmade. You can't get a handmade guitar for 160. Auction. Someone, I don't know if the person in the house had died or what, but this guy got hold of it and it's just a house clearance, getting rid of it. Take a punt.
Do you tinker with it? Have you had?
I want to. You see, now that was coming to one of the more personal questions. So one of the reasons, it's not one of the reasons, it's one of the main reasons, but I want to take the lacquer off it because it's got that thick layer of plastic lacquer. The stuff that you can bash, and it's meant to protect. It's there to protect the guitar, but I want to be able to take that off because it's got this fantastic wood underneath it. So I think it's spruce on top, and it's possibly rosewood or something on the back. But it's covered, and I know that probably affects the sound. So this is what I wanted to ask you. From a French polishing lacquer point of view, how does that sort of feed in?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I'd say as a kind of project, it's a great one. A lot of people do end up with instruments where they want to take the finish off, and it is not a job for the faint-hearted. No, it's quite a big job.
It's also a lot of chemicals.
There can be. I would go at that with probably a cabinet scraper to take it off. Sharpen scraper. Yeah. So learning the skills of sharpening a cabinet scraper is going to be your best friend taking the finish off that. But absolutely, the finish is a huge part of the sound of a guitar for me. I French polish my guitars, so I kind of appreciate the benefits of like a super fine finish. It's hard to emphasize how thin a French polish finish is.
No. I have
almost not there.
Yeah, I've got a guitar that's got lots of dings in it because it's French polished. So it just scratches really easily. It's just one of those things.
Totally, yeah. You look at it and it's
it's road rash, I think is the technical term.
Yeah.
It's been out and been played.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got to be very careful.
Definitely. There's no perfect finish. I mean, it's either armor plated, but it kills the sound, or it's very delicate and it really allows the sound of the guitar to open up. So, yeah, it swings and roundabouts with finishing. So for me as a maker, I'm also process led. Okay. So I love working with French polish, or I love working with shellac, which is the material used in French polishing, because it's totally organic. There's no chemicals involved, basically. We use alcohol, ethanol, to make the shellac that we're going to apply. But besides that, it's just totally natural ingredients.
Okay. So for viewers who might be interested in your work, how can they get in touch with you to discuss repairs or commissions?
Yes.
Or your lessons?
Yeah, absolutely. So my guitar making and repair endeavours, the place to go is alexbishopguitars.com, and there's loads of information there.
And that's here in Bristol, by the way.
Here in Bristol.
Yeah.
So there you can get in touch with me directly to inquire about commissions. I've got a couple of guitars for sale at the moment, so I do a passion project every year, so they go up on the website.
Okay.
And I do that alongside the commissions. Yeah, all my teaching is through Bristol Guitar Making School, which is guitarmakingschool.co.uk. Okay. And there you can browse all the different courses that we've got coming up. Twice a year I do the 3-week courses, and I've got one-to-ones and evening classes running throughout the rest of the year, and 1-week courses as well. So there's something for everybody.
Thank you very much for staying until the end. This has been brought to you by Classical Guitar Rocks. Part 2 of this video is going to pop up just about now, where we're going to go even more in depth to the aesthetics of guitar making and buying guitars and the ideas around guitars. This has been your daily dose of 6-string inspiration for myself, Rhayn, Alex Bishop, and Classical Guitar Rocks.